How's it going, guys? Still March 23rd, 2:07 p.m. here on the East Coast. I'm doing the second vlog for today since I didn't get a chance to put one up yesterday. So this one's going to be about an interesting conversation me and my wife had about something the other day. And sometimes I choose to share these things, sometimes I choose not to. But I think this could benefit a lot of people besides just myself. So we had a particular conversation about work, my job and her job. And I kind of started the conversation. I was a little hesitant to start because sometimes you don't want to create trouble if you don't have to. But I did want to have the conversation with her just to kind of open up her eyes about some things and get her feedback about some things. So I probed the conversation by saying that, do you think I respect your job? She's an X-ray tech, and she takes pride in the work she does. I take pride in the work that she does, and it helps a lot of people at times. So again, I probed her by asking uh, if she thought that I respected her job. She said yes, and then I asked if she thought that she respected my job, and she said no. I said, well, that makes things a little bit easier because that's kind of the response that I thought you would say, was that she didn't respect my job. There's times where I'm running late for one reason or another, and she's like, oh, just tell him this or just tell him that. But when it comes to her going to her job, she tries to make sure that she's always on time, and I try to make sure of the same thing. It's a habitual thing that they taught you in the military already to be like always to be like 10 minutes prior, which I've never been a big fan of being on time. I have this different mindset where you kind of show up when you get things done. And you get there when you get there. You're always supposed to be at where you're at that point in time. Even if you have commitments for certain to be at a place at a certain time, sometimes you get there a little bit late. And I'm okay with that. I've never been too stringent other than being in the military, and now that I'm not in the military, I really want to live a more relaxed life and not be so uptight, especially about small things like timing. It could be big, it could mean big things to other people, and I've lived on the other side of the coin, but now since I don't have to, I choose not to at times. I take care of the things that I got to take care of in the time that I have. So with that being said, the conversation took a couple other turns. I was trying to get some more definitive answers about some other things. So I asked her. Then I just started to focus in on my job because that truly was the focus of my conversation, was to iron some things out about my job. Since I knew she doesn't respect my job. I asked her if she thought that the money I made there was good, and she told me, yeah. I asked her if she thought that I worked hard. She said, absolutely. And there was a time a couple months ago when I was transitioning out of the military where things were a little uncertain. We were uncertain about a lot of different variables, and we were a little scared, and it goes with the change. You kind of don't know what to expect, but I told her, being my wife, that I will always take care of you, that no matter what happens, you will always be provided for. Um, and I just have always done that, and I will continue to always do that. I didn't know how I was going to provide, but I knew that I was going to provide. And that not knowing how, for a person like her, was a little scary. But I know my work ethic, and I know the commitment and passion I can have to do something. So I wasn't concerned about it. I just took it in stride, and then we had other avenues of income that were going to that were going to help us out. So I kind of set things up to benefit us, and we had a place to go to. Some family to take us in for a while, so while we transition to get our own place and get on our feet and find jobs and do all that other good stuff as it goes along with moving and transitioning into a new place. So while we're doing all those things, and I'll probably get into that a little bit later in this vlog, but as I'm kind of probing the conversation and trying to figure out if she appreciates the work that I do and the pay that I get, to have her kind of simulate or come to a conclusion that there has to be some type of respect for my job, whether she realizes it or not. If she appreciates the money I make and she appreciates the hard work that I put forth, then she should appreciate the job somewhat. That's just my conclusion, the way I think logically about it. But she kind of she lives in the more of the futuristic things where, if we were to have more kids, or when our daughter comes back from Arizona because she's visiting her other grandma at the moment, um, that things are going to be more relied on her, since I work kind of a nighttime schedule and she works a daytime schedule. But I'm kind of an optimistic type of person, and the way I spin sometimes negative things is to find the positive, find the silver lining in that. If we work opposite schedules, we should use that to our advantage, not our disadvantage. So, like when we were working opposite schedules now, we were able to be with our daughter more, not have her in daycare as often, which was more quality time spent with her and less money out of pocket for daycare. So those are the kinds of ways that I try to spin the positive light on it when you have opposing schedules. The other thing is, and just speaking from a marital point of view, sometimes the differentiating schedules means less time together overall, but it does mean an increase in the quality of time that you do have in the short run, or in the long run, however you want to look at it. But if you have less overall time together, and this is just me, using my 2 cents, you have less overall time together, and the time that you do have together will be obviously minimized, but you're going to try to make the most of it. That's just my logic, and that's what we have been doing. And the believe it or not, the less time that you have together really does make for an increase in happiness, at least for us, in the time that we do spend together. It's more, it's much more happier, and we're more conscious of the decisions we make. We don't just let the day slide by unless that's what we want to do on purpose. Just relax, chill out, and watch movies or TV shows. Then we'll do that type of thing. Like we went to a movie to watch Beauty and the Beast a couple days ago, even though our timeline was pretty tight for that day. I mean, I had to work in the morning, we went after work, and then we were still trying to have some dinner plans either before or after. But she actually met me at work with some, I guess you could call it a super late lunch. It was around 5 or 6 o'clock, and maybe an early dinner, to kind of condense the time that we were together. And I appreciate those little things that she does for me, and it makes me realize that she appreciates my time, because it's dwindling. In essence, it seems to get smaller and smaller every day, but in reality, it's just a matter of being awake versus being asleep. But as we, talked more and more about the conversation, we kind of realized a couple different things, and I told her she's got a couple different options. I mean, I'm able to take the decrease in income and not work, and be home like I was before for a couple months while I was looking for jobs and why I couldn't find jobs. But we still had other avenues of income. It just meant for a much tighter living. So you have to, compromise or see what's more valuable. So I asked her, what do you think is more valuable? Would you want me to stay home and have less income, or go to work and have more income? And if I have to weigh into it, I like what I do for work, and it pays pretty well most times. Sometimes it doesn't. It's the service industry, so you have good days, you have bad days. But overall, it's not so bad. If it was, I wouldn't do it. If it didn't make sense, I wouldn't do it. But she said for now it will work, but if we ever have other kids, that may change. And I said that's fine. But for now, if we're on the same page, and that's what I recommend to most married couples is make sure you're on the same page. If you have an issue with something, bring it up, and bring it up in a way that's eye-opening to the other person, but not demeaning. And this is something I've had to work on and finesse over time, just to make sure that you're not insulting, you're not degrading, you're not belittling. Because when I was in the military, she was very proud of my job, even though sometimes I would do less service for people, so to speak, or less work. What I brought up to her was the hours that I was working then. It was a Monday through Friday when I was stateside here in the States. If I wasn't training, so it was Monday through Friday, roughly, I would leave the house at 6 in the morning and be back by 5:30. So you're talking about 11-hour days, 5 days a week. But she didn't have an issue with it then. So my presenting it to her now, I said I average about 40 hours a week on 5 days a week. Some days are shorter than others, and some days are longer than others. But roughly, I work 5 days a week. I work Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and some Sundays. Sundays I'm trying to get alternated so I don't have to work every Sunday and I can have one day off. But sometimes I do work that Sunday. Lately, I have been working. But I told her if you add up all the hours, it's still less than 11 hours times 5. That's 55 hours. I'm averaging about 40 hours, so that's 15 hours less a week that I'm working, and that I'm able to be home with with my girls, my wife and my daughter. So as I'm bringing these things up to her, it kind of makes sense, and I always think logically whenever I'm explaining things. But my wife living in the future, sometimes it's good, sometimes it makes for realistic points, and sometimes it's bad because she needs to reel it into the now and really compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges. You can't judge what's going to happen tomorrow. And she would always try and bounce back to the future. And I said, well, obviously the future isn't promised to anybody. We're not guaranteed tomorrow, so we have to live for today. And if this works for today and you're happy with the things that I'm doing, then why not let me continue doing them? And have a little bit more respect for my job, even though you may not like it, or it may not be as glorious to you as your job was. I never embellished when I was in the military about serving in the military and my job being better than yours. Never did I do that. Never will I do that. About any job that I work at, regardless of how much money or responsibility that I have. I don't think that's right, and I don't think that's fair. You shouldn't be in competing with your spouse. You guys should be working as a team in unison for a centered goal, whether it be to raise children or start a family or live together in happiness and travel the world with or without kids. The goal should be united. And that's kind of what I was trying to bring to light there, is that, this isn't necessarily a competition. And nor did I ever want it to be that way. But at times it seems like there's a lack of respect that I just had to bring to her attention. And in order to do that, you have to do it kind of swiftly and without being degrading, like I said. So, trying to think if there was anything else. I think that was a majority of the conversation. Just to tie the what I was talking about earlier, just to kind of bring it full circle. But when we did move and I did transition out of the military, we moved to Miami, where we tried it out for 6 months, and although that didn't work for us because there was an oversaturated market there for her, she was out of work for like 6 months, and then just on a whim, we came to visit where I currently live at, Palm Coast, where the rest of my family is, and we were just jokingly around. We looked at a couple houses just to see, because I would always bring it up to her. If you compared what we would find in Miami and use that same amount of pay to a house down here, it was astronomical, the difference. You're talking about maybe a 2 or 3 bedroom in Miami, if you're lucky, and versus the house we landed here being a 4 bedroom, 2 bath, and a 2 car garage, which is something we really wanted. And in Miami, 2 car garages are pretty rare, believe it or not, unless you're in a well-developed community. And even some of those well-developed communities that lack garages altogether. So having a 2 car garage was surely out of the questions a lot of the time. So um, we came up here just to look at the houses in an almost jokingly manner. We didn't take it that seriously. She applied for a job, and we just thought we'd throw that out there. And sure as everything, I remember we had looked at the house. We liked the house. It had just became available on the market, and while we were looking at the house, we were waiting to be approved for the house. While we were, she was like, "Well, I do like the house. I can't really complain with the price. It was substantially lower than anything, and much better than anything we could have gotten in Miami." And then while we were out and about, I knew that if we wanted the house, we'd be able to get it. So it wasn't that big of an issue. But if she wanted a job, she'd have to apply for it and get it, interview, all these other things. So she took an interview just to see what would happen, just to talk to some people, just to find out the pay. And believe it or not, in this small town, they offered her more pay. And just to sum up the story, we were able to find a house, this house that we're in now, and she got a job within the same week. And sometimes you can't fight those definitive things that happen or that are meant to happen. Now, then you have options. You can turn down the job, you can turn down the house, but at least you have the option to do so. And sometimes when things are just set there and they happen so swiftly in a manner that you can't deny, sometimes you have to go along with it. So she did take the job, and we did move into the house. But it was that unified team effort that really made that happen, that being on the same page, even though she didn't want to live in this town for quite some time. I mean, kind of the goal was to come back here after a couple of years of making pretty good money in Miami, but that was much harder said than done. And they offered her, what was it, $4 more an hour here for the same job. Just because Miami was an oversaturated market with a bunch of X-ray techs who were competing, so they can offer you less pay and have people think that that's okay. But to my wife, it was insulting for her amount of experience and a lot of other things that she had going on, and leaving a job in Colorado where she was making way more than that. And the offer that she got was less than her first job as an X-ray tech. So for her, it was just a little eye-opening. But I've started to realize it's just simple economics. More people to choose from. There's more supply than demand down there. And when you get to smaller cities like the city we live in now, with a substantially less population, there's more demand than supply. There's not a bunch of X-ray techs running around here looking for jobs. There's a lot of training, but that doesn't mean they necessarily graduate and all that other good stuff that goes along with becoming an X-ray tech, like getting your state license and all these other things you got to have to take care of. So as things kind of started to work out, it kind of opened up our eyes, and we just went along with the flow. But to tie it all back to that initial conversation we had, was to have a mutual respect for each other's job, regardless of what you do. If I were to have to work at Walmart just to make ends meet, then appreciate the job that I do. And vice versa. If she was to have to take on a second job just to make ends meet, then I should appreciate whatever it is she does, because it contributes to the overall goals of our team. So I think that'd be long enough. I haven't done a video this long in quite some time, but got to make sure that I stayed sharp with long videos as well as short videos. So I appreciate you guys watching, liking, commenting, subscribing. Appreciate you guys watching my videos, and I definitely thank you guys for all the support that I've continued to receive. And I should be doing a live, not a live, but I should be doing a talk this Sunday. My first live talk is what I meant to say. in front of an audience. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know how big the audience will be, but it'll be my first live talk, and I'm really excited about doing that and sharing it with the people who subscribe to my channel. So I appreciate you guys, and I will see you on the next one.